guys, it's Nicola. Today I have a wee recommendations video. I just wanted to recommend you 5 books that will make you lol. I don't necessarily go for funny books very often because I have a very dry sense of humour, and most of the things that are sold as like mainstream funny don't necessarily appeal to me. I often don't know where to start to find funny books, but these are just some that I have found funny in my personal opinion and that I think you might enjoy. Most of them are a good story apart from being a little bit silly or just intentionally funny. So yeah, I will share them with you now. My first pick is Let's Explore Diabetes with Owls by David Sedaris. I love David Sedaris, and I'm sure you've heard a lot of people rave about him before. He has published several volumes, and my favourite of his is actually his most recent. I have worked my way through all of his stuff, and now I'm thinking of just working backwards through like all of his audiobooks because he has just the most distinctive voice, and you might love it or hate it. Most people love it, and it took me a while, but I grew to love his voice. I also saw him live a couple of years ago at the Edinburgh Fringe, which was really, really fun and totally hilarious. So yeah, basically, Let's Explore Diabetes with Owls is a collection of personal essays, and he just extols like ridiculous stuff that happens to him or just weird shit. So the first essay in this collection is about how he was trying to buy a gift for his sister, and he goes into like an antique shop that sells really weird stuff and tries to find her the most grotesque thing that he can find. I'll leave the rest for you to find out, but yeah, just very funny, very droll, very dry humour, and I love him. Another essayist who I really love is Augustine Burroughs. This is not an essay collection but a novel, and it is called Television, and it's kind of shock value humour. It's very mean-spirited and dark. It's by this guy called Max Andrews, who is a TV presenter, and he accidentally exposes himself on TV on a channel somewhat like QVC, one of these like kind of shopping channels, and then his life just like completely falls to bits. And then there's also another woman called Peggy Jean Smith who is like just kind of an awful person, and then awful things happen to her. So it's kind of the downfall of terrible people. I feel like I need to read it again because it is a few years since I read it. You just need to go with it. It's wacky and it's ridiculous and it's kind of horrible at points, but that totally appeals to me, so maybe it'll appeal to you too. My next pick's quite well known. It's called Where'd You Go Bernadette by Maria Semple. I think I got this for my birthday like 3 years ago. It's one of the first books I actually talked about on BookTube. Maria Semple started it as a TV writer. She wrote on shows like Arrested Development, so she's very witty, and a lot of the stuff in her books reads like set pieces, so she's very good at like setting a scene and letting things go ridiculously awry. I think this is actually going to be made, and it was recently mentioned that Kate Blanchett may be in it, which is interesting casting. So I suggest that you read it as soon as you can if you haven't already. So basically this is an epistolary novel. It begins with a girl called B whose mother Bernadette has disappeared. She gets together all the documents and emails and things that she can find to surmise why her mother has disappeared. There's some really funny passages in this. I would totally read this again. I read Maria Semple's other book, which is called This One Is Mine, and I didn't like it as much, but this is just really fun, really lighthearted. Probably a nice one to read in the winter, especially if you've read it before, because it'll be nice and familiar for you. My next pick is another recent release, and it is Bream Gives Me Hiccups by Jesse Eisenberg. I read this when I was on holiday in the springtime, and it's just really funny. He does pathos really well, and he just like tries stuff out. He just throws stuff at the wall and sees if it sticks. So in that way it's kind of improvised, and there are lots of kind of horrible characters having horrible things happen to them again. There's a lot of neurotics. There's a really lovely series of stories that are written by an 8th grader about restaurants. So they're supposed to be restaurant reviews, but they're actually more about his interactions with his mother and the dating scene and how she's trying to navigate single motherhood. I talked about this one a lot in my best of 2015 so far earlier this year, and a few of his stories have since appeared in The New Yorker, including one which is called An Honest Film Review, which is about a film critic, and it got lots of film critics quite upset when it came out a few weeks ago. So yeah, you should read that as well. I just really like what he's doing, and it obviously rubs people up the wrong way. Just kind of like wind them up and let them go. So yeah, you can see if you're on my side or other people's when you read this one. Finally, you're getting Two for the Price of One. This is an author who I mention quite often, and it's Juan Pablo Villalobos, and his first book is called Down the Rabbit Hole. It's a novella. It's about a kid whose dad is a Mexican drug lord and he doesn't realise it, and all he wants in life is a pygmy hippopotamus. Yeah, it's dark, but it's funny. And similarly with Quesadillas, this is about a family who lives at the bottom end of working class, and he has lots of brothers, and they, like, basically his siblings all begin to disappear for various reasons, and it is kind of a satire of politics in Mexico. And I was just like gleeful reading this because the prose is so beautiful and funny in a similar way to like PG Wodehouse, and that's amazing because it was translated. So good job, Neil Mukherjee, something like that. I will put a link to the book below so you can find it, and I'll put a link to all the books below so you can find them. If you have read any of these and do or do not agree with me, then please let me know. And if you have any books that you think are particularly funny that you'd like me to try it, then please let me know. Anything dry, dark humour, or particularly horrible to mean people seems to be my jam. And I hope you enjoyed this. If you pick any of these up, do let me know what you think of them, and I will speak to you very soon. Bye bye.